Good morning, friends. Welcome back to Stories with Pastor Macy. I have a story for us today as well as an object lesson. We'll do the object lesson last. And the stories and the object lesson are by request of Andrew. He pointed out that it's been a while since we have done an object lesson, which is very true. And he said that he liked the stories with voices. So we're doing a story with voices. The book that we've been reading some of those fun stories with voices out of is called Parables of Fenton Forest. And it is written by Gordon Beets, the president of Southern Adventist University, and produced by their school. So today's story is called Whom Can You Trust? And it has a little blurb at the bottom of the page before we read the story. So we're going to read the blurb. Trust is central to cultivating good working relationships and building a successful community, despite a projected outcome of success or failure. Exploring and researching are central to the Southern University experience. During this process, students put their trust in fellow students and professors as everyone learns together. And whenever there are little blurbs in this book about Southern, I like to say, that's true of Southern, but that is also true of our other excellent Adventist institutions of Walla Walla University and Andrews and La Sierra, and of our high schools like PAA and Milo, that they are doing these same kinds of things where building trust is a part of the educational experience. So, our story today is Whom Can You Trust? Once upon a time, in Fenton Forest, all the forest community was up in arms about a scam that had been perpetrated by a friend of Freddie Fox. In the course of the friend's visit to the forest, he told some wonderful stories about how he was working on a special formula that prevented aging. Now, if there was one thing that all of the Fenton Forest residents had in common, it was the desire to never grow old. Freddie's friend had come from Big Forest and had such a smooth way of talking that he convinced many of the forest residents that an anti-aging vitamin or elixir was on the verge of discovery. Of course, he needed just a little more money to put the finishing touches on the product, and anyone who contributed would get in on the ground floor when the profits began rolling in. As you can guess, the friend said he would report regularly after he left the big roll of money, including some that Freddie had invested too. It was a week or two before anyone got suspicious, and a week or two after that before anyone dared to admit the possibility that they had been scammed. When the full realization hit, the forest folk were angry. They tried to blame Freddie, but he told them that he had been taken in just like the rest of them. The experience did something to the forest community. Scamper Squirrel had always given out nuts at the nut hut on credit, but now he began to require advance payment. Gruff Bear wanted Bert Badger to do some excavation work on his den, but Bert was requiring a contract. When Lightfoot Deer pulled an apple off the old apple tree and gave it to Randy Raccoon, who couldn't reach the branch that the apple was on, Randy questioned Lightfoot's motives. A kind of cloud settled over Fenton Forest as folks grew suspicious and distrusting of everyone. Guards were hired to protect food stores, alarms were installed around dens, and many fences were built. Each resident at the forest was looking out only for himself. The community happiness was broken to pieces as there was no longer any trust. The members of the Forest family lived in daily anticipation of some new discovery of corruption, and many of them found exactly what they were looking for. They even passed some truth in talking laws, but it didn't do much good. There was not much talking going on anywhere. Excuse me. because each one suspiciously regarded the words and activities of those around him. There's Lightfoot Deer giving Randy Raccoon an apple. One day, each animal who had given money to Freddie's friend from Big Forest received an envelope in the mail. In each envelope was a note that said, "The project I was working on has proven unsuccessful, and enclosed you will find your money with interest." There was joy in Fenton Forest for a time, but they had spent too much money on alarms and guard dogs to simply get rid of it. They had spent too much money on fences to tear them down. They had invested too much distrust. It was wise old Owl who said, "Hoo-hoo, we must rebuild trust, for without trust, hoo-hoo, there will be no Fenton Forest." 1 John 4:8 says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love." So I wonder who you are trusting right now. If you are trusting everything you read, or if you're doing a little bit of research and checking your sources, that's always a good thing. So today we have an object lesson. And our verse said that perfect love drives out fear, right? Oh, I gotta find it again. Where'd it go in our book? Here we go. "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made in perfect love." And the only love that is perfect is God's love, right? So today I have a candle and some matches, and I have 2 balloons. Now, one of these balloons is just filled up with air. I just blew it up. But this one, I don't know if you can see it, it sloshes. It has some water in it too, along with air. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little experiment. I'm going to light our candle. Would help if I had the right end of the match. Let's try the other side of the box. There we go. All right. So we're going to light our candle. Put that somewhere safe where it won't burn anything. So there is our candle. And we're going to start with our balloon that just has air in it, okay? So trust is a wonderful thing, but trust is also a two-way street, right? I trust you because I think that you're trustworthy, and you can trust me because you think I'm trustworthy. So when one person trusts and the other person isn't trustworthy, they get burned. Woo! It blew out our candle, didn't it? But it also popped our balloon. So when we trust someone who isn't trustworthy, we can get burned. Our balloon can pop. But we also know, let's relight our candle, that God can help with trust, that He is always trustworthy. And sometimes, because of sin, even when we want to be trustworthy, we aren't. Because sin breaks relationships, right? With God and with friends and with parents and grandparents. And so sometimes, even when we want to be trustworthy, we're not. Because sin gets in the way and we get burned. But we also have our balloon over here with our water in it, right? And when Jesus is in our life, He says that He is the living water. And when He's inside of us, He helps us to be trustworthy, right? And that means that even though we're still sinful, that our relationship with God is not as broken. And so that's like having water in our balloon. Okay, the other balloon popped really fast. So we're going to see if we can count to 7 and if our balloon with water will burn. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Our other balloon popped a lot quicker than that. But our water, the living water, Jesus living inside of us, can protect us and help us so that we don't get burned and so that we can be trustworthy. In Romans chapter 8, there's a verse Paul is writing, and he says, none of us is righteous, no, not one. And then he goes on to explain what righteousness is and how the law that's written in the Bible helps us to be righteous, but then Jesus is the one who really makes that possible. And this is what he writes in Romans 8, verses 22 and following. The righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe is possible. For there is no distinction. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So we all deserve to be the balloon that pops when it touches the flame, right? All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God and are justified by his grace as a gift. It's not something we do. Grace is something that Jesus gives us. And through the redemption that is in Jesus Christ, who God put forward as a propitiation by his blood to be received by faith. So what that means is that Jesus' gift of blood, when we receive that through faith, that means that we accept the gift of grace, which is free, which is something we can't do for ourselves. So our little flame is still burning, and I hope you remember that by ourselves, the flame blows out, right? We pop the balloon. But with the living water inside of us, we don't get burned. Have a wonderful Sunday, and I'll see you again soon.